Hey everybody, everything new under the sun. A lot of videos, I know. There's a lot of things happening, and I want to cover it before the information changes. We're on the cusp of an incursion, an overrun, an invasion of Kiev, the city itself, and the citizens themselves are now being armed. I think the number I saw was 18,000 machine guns were given out to citizens themselves to arm themselves to defend the city, along with whatever is left of the army in Kiev. This is Zero Hedge, lots of updates here. And what I want to key in on is not that Ukraine is being invaded and has been invaded. That's happened. I don't think that's going to change. The bigger issue is when is a red line crossed with NATO. And there's several concerning things that are happening and words being thrown around that could pull them into this. Disclose TV, this is a tweet. Cyber attacks by Russia on members of alliance can trigger Article 5, warns NATO head Stoltenberg. Now, any triggering of any article of the NATO agreement means that all the NATO nations would come into war together against the one or with the one that was attacked, and in this case by cyber attack, and then would be going to war against Russia. So we're very, very close to World War III, really. Julian Rupke said he did not say this. He said individual NATO countries decided to supply such systems. NATO is not supplying weapons to Ukraine. And that was in reference to a comment that NATO Secretary General Hans Stoltenberg says NATO to provide more weapons, including air defense systems. Now, there is some suggestion that indeed the U.S. is providing some maybe surface-to-air missile weapons, something like that. NATO Chief Stoltenberg announced on Friday that elements of the 40,000 troop strong NATO response force would be activated for the first time. So they're activating a lot of troops all along the NATO borders with Ukraine, effectively, and with Russia. A lot of activations, a lot of troop movements heading there from NATO, because effectively Russia is now right on the doorstep of NATO. There is no longer a kind of a neutral land, a no man's land between NATO and Russia. That's what Ukraine kind of served as, a neutral ground, not in NATO, but not part of Russia either. Kind of westernized, kind of not. But now there is no buffer zone anymore. Russia is butted up right against NATO nations. Russia is even coming out and threatening Finland. Finland is now saying, I want to be a part of NATO. Can we become part of NATO? Russia says, if you do that, we will attack you, effectively. They were talking about looking for a place for peace today, but the Russians are advancing on Kiev, and they're basically fighting in the cities, which we'll see in a second here. So you can see the map of Kiev there, and Russian troops and mercenaries, whatever, going there. This is from Twitter again. Social media, Russian Topol M ICBMs on the move in Moscow. So intercontinental ballistic missiles you see passing right there is now on the move for some reason. Is that because of Ukraine? Well, I don't think they need ICBMs for Ukraine. That would be more for defending against a larger NATO attack. Do they have some idea? Is there some new command from Central Command in Russia that they need to be ready to use an ICBM against Europe, against whomever? We know they have nuclear warheads. Putin has even threatened to use them against anyone that attacks them. And we have NATO coming out and saying, look, if you even cyber attack one of our NATO members, that will be a declaration of war. And Putin saying, you know what, if you do anything against us, we're going to use nuclear weapons. There was a kind of a veiled, vague comment about nuclear weapons. He didn't come out and say nuclear weapons. But that's out there. And this is quite real. Marco Rubio, this is a tweet. Tonight and for weeks to come, Ukraine hashtag has a few welcome to Kiev surprise gifts for their uninvited guests. Now, is this a reference to American provided weapons to the citizens of Kiev or other more advanced weaponry inside the city? Maybe some air defense systems. I heard there were some air defense systems going there. Other situations. NATO nations are or at least some nations that are part of NATO are providing weapons and support. And again, when does it cross the line of Russia saying, you know what, if you're giving weapons to these guys, you are fair game too? And so Russia has every good excuse really to say, you know what, we're gonna go after NATO nations too, U.S. for example. Here's a sad video about fighting in the streets already. This is from earlier today. So that's some gunfire in the streets. It's a sad time. Civilians are underground in subway system stations. Zelensky, again, it's a sad thing. Zelensky says, Russia will try to break our resistance with all its might. Tonight, the enemy will begin storming us. We need to withstand them, he says. Chernihiv, Simi, Kharkiv, Donbass, and South, and especially Kiev, could come under attack. He says, this night they will launch an assault. The enemy will use all its power on all fronts to break our defense. This night we will have to stand ground. The fate of Ukraine is being decided now. He said, this night will be difficult, very difficult, but morning will come. This is quite a sobering statement, to be honest. This is why I want to put this video up tonight. It's incredible. Russian leaders. So here's comments about how NATO could get involved. Today, the United States, in coordination with allies and partners, continue to forcefully respond to Russia's unjustified, unprovoked, premeditated invasion by imposing sanctions on Putin. So they're now imposing sanctions directly on Putin and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Lavrov, as well as members of Russia's Security Council. This builds on other sweeping actions the United States and partners took earlier. The problem with this is now they're directly targeting Putin, and the suggestion is that Putin could see this as an act of war by those countries. Russian leaders, including Putin himself, in past statements have warned that sanctions against the sitting head of state would be seen as tantamount to an act of war. And sure, if you put these sanctions on the direct quote unquote elected head of state or whatever, I guess it doesn't have to be elected, but the leader of the country, then yeah, I can absolutely see that as being an act of war. So that's the question now. Is that an act of war? Will Putin see it that way? Does he want to get into a larger war? Certainly Western nations don't want to get into war, but they certainly don't. They're doing everything they can right up to and including providing weapons directly to Ukraine to battle Russia. And the last thing is just a all-out conventional war or a complete cyber attack war between the nations. And I absolutely see that coming. We know Cyber Polygon is a direct threat. It's likely going to happen just like the pandemic and Event 201 happened. And so this could be a great excuse to trigger that. They knew it was coming. They saw this. And, what easier way, less lives lost potentially, or at least directly, if you, send cyber attacks in either direction. So the news about the ICBM is troubling, and NATO nations should be concerned. I'm sure all militaries are on high alert. Air defense systems are on high alert. Israel is likely on high alert. So this is a really interesting situation here, and this is the night. We'll see if Kiev survives the night intact or Russia completely overruns it. Already hundreds, probably thousands of civilians. I know last I read there was 1,000 dead Russian soldiers already. Who knows the casualties on the Ukrainian side? So we need to pray for peace in the Ukraine. This is looking more and more like what happened in the lead up to World War II. We don't know what is going to happen. Only the Lord knows. But I think it gets a lot worse before a leader stands up in the world and says, you know what, we need to come together as a world. We need to drop our sovereign nations, drop our sovereign currencies, and take this digital ID or whatever it is in your right hand to your forehead. We have to create a new economic system. And what does all that come out of? It usually comes out of ash and destruction and collapse. And so what could this be leading up to, this war here? It could be leading up to exactly that, to the point where people are so desperate, they say, we just want peace. And they will accept the world leader and give all control to him for the next couple of years. So, and it will turn into a 7-year, quote-unquote, peace situation, of course, where the mark of the beast is rolled in, the world government, and then the treaty is broken at the midpoint, which is the abomination of desolation in the third temple. So anyways, folks, I won't keep it long. I wanted to get this video out tonight. This is a big deal. Putting lots of videos up because this is, I believe, Bible prophecy happening before our eyes. Pay attention. Be prepared. Get ready to move. You may need to move wherever you are listening to this video from. We don't know what cyber attacks could be coming. The U.S. is on high alert for that. Canada is as well, I would expect. And so that could mean disruption in the supply chain. That could mean nuclear reactors shutting down, power stations, nuclear power installations shutting down, shortage of fuels, even maybe some conventional incoming missiles from Russia. That's not out of the picture, to be honest, if we go that far. I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we will get there, but that is not out of the picture, as ICBMs in Russia are on the move. Something to be aware of. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.